The power of predictive analytics gets closer to now every second, and the means of achieving effective predictive models keeps improving and diversifying. That drives down cost and usually results in better outcomes for the business. Find out more on this episode of Future Proof.
The future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed. Yet. Today's world teems with innovation. The nexus of hardware, software, and human ingenuity promises a revolution in possibilities. What does tomorrow look like? Witness Future Proof.
Yours truly, Eric Kavanaugh here, and what a fun show we have lined up for you today, folks. We're going to talk about predictive analytics. What will tomorrow bring? Or the next moment? Yeah, it's getting really fast these days, folks. They call that latency, low latency. Predictive models that can track what you're doing. They know your history, what you've done before. They build predictive models around your behavior, around the customer behavior of other folks in their environment. And they use that to make good offers to you. They use that to really try to optimize your time on their platforms. So we're going to talk to several experts today. We've got my good friend Zehra Katerp dialing in from Tazi AI. We've got Faisal Khan from a company called Talent that's been around for quite a while now. Integration at first, but really all data management lifecycle end to end these days. And then our new friend Surya from a company called Readiness is dialing in as well, all the way from India. So we've got multiple countries online here today. We're all going to talk about what you can do with predictive models these days. And as I suggested, you can do a whole heck of a lot. I already learned in the pre-show talking to Surya about composable CDPs. We'll talk about that. A CDP is a customer data platform. Think about it, it's sort of like a database with bells and whistles. It's designed to really optimize the use, the persistence, and then the execution, if you will, of customer data. So what kind of products do you like to buy? What kind of products should I, as a retailer, show you when you come to our site? What kind of a design layout should the site have? We're seeing all these sorts of really cool innovations in dynamic provisioning of web pages, of offerings, and then you can track all that stuff too. So it does get pretty sticky in the weeds. It is pretty technical stuff, and we'll talk with Zehra about making that much more simple for the end user, because you don't want to have to rely on a data scientist and a whole team of data engineers if you don't have the budget for that. We want to be able to let business users leverage machine learning, artificial intelligence, and of course, the goal being analytics, automation, without having to go and take Python classes or R or whatever the case may be. So good stuff lined up for you today. And to start us off, I'll throw it over to Zehra of Tazi.ai. Zehra, welcome back to DM Radio. Tell us a bit about the latest, what you've been working on, and how quickly your platform is able to identify opportunities and capitalize on them. Go ahead.
It's great seeing you, Eric, and again, and I always love the content that you produce. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. So we have seen the time it takes to create a working machine learning solution to be an important factor for success. So if you just go there as a data scientist team and try to create things on your own, it takes months. Like we are talking about 6 months to see any value out of machine learning, if you can. But we have been able to include all the parties, data analysts, data scientists, engineers, as well as business analysts and subject matter experts from beginning. When we do that, we are seeing as little as 40 days to a model that can be put into production. So that requires a lot of things, in terms of data quality, model creation, explanations, model deployment, and return investment. How to put that into machine learning models, so they know what to optimize. So yeah, I mean, 40 days is what we can do now, and we can even shorten it based on the data quality and the team readiness, of course. But what I find more and more
cool
is
stuff.
Yeah, and people think machine learning is all about data. It's not. It's actually about people and your processes. So you have to include the people who are already running those processes into machine learning, so that they can help machine learning do better. So more or less these are what we are saying, but we can talk more, of course.
Yeah, of course. And fun fact I learned a number of years ago, 40 days and 40 nights, of course, these biblical terms, right? Like the how long it rained for Noah's Ark and all that stuff. Back then, 40 didn't mean necessarily the number after 39 and before 41. It just meant a lot of days, right? So 40 days doesn't have to be taken so literally, but that's a pretty fast on ramp to be able to come into a customer environment, connect to their data sources. I mean, there's a fair amount of grunt work that has to be done to gather and capture the data and build the baseline. I mean, that's really what you're doing with machine learning and data science is you're trying to first understand, all right, what does the real world look like from our perspective right now? And then you start to look for patterns of behavior to identify opportunities to say, aha, we figured out that this group of people likes to buy products on Friday afternoon. So let's optimize our sales and marketing channels to focus on delivering opportunities to them on Friday afternoon. I mean, it's a fairly simple thing, but just paying attention to when people do things, when people open emails or go to events or look on their phone and buy things, like all of those patterns can be ascertained these days because we're capturing every last bit of data, whether it's the device they're on, the browser that they're using, when they're using it. These are all dimensions to be tracked, right, Zeta?
Yes, but I want to put a caveat there. There is like a lot of data flowing into our systems, business systems now. But we always ask our customers, what do you want to do with that data? So do you want to retain your customers? Do you want to make more profits? Do you want to identify fraud? So whatever your goal is, we tie up that goal to data. So there is an area called feature selection. So we automatically identify which among all the variables you are collecting right now is relevant for that goal. So
Interesting.
you create models with as little data as possible, actually. If people want to create very, like models with huge amount of variables, I'm actually against that. I want to create models with as little number of variables as possible, so they are understandable and they are actionable. Because as business experts take actions based on the explanations they see. If they see hundreds of things to pull, they can't pull all of them, but they can pull the important triggers to make sure that they actually get something out of those models. So lots of variables, but which ones are relevant? So machine
That's
learning systems need to identify those relevant ones.
That's an excellent point. And this is kind of what I was getting at in the pre-call in terms of what you can track about customers or even companies or trends in the marketplace or whatever. What can you track, but what can you compute in real time and what does it make sense to compute in real time? And that's what you're hinting at right now is ask the user, what's your objective here? Is it customer retention? Is it more profit? Is it cross-selling, for example? Is it to get them to buy a particular product that you happen to have an abundance of? That kind of thing. That all goes into it. And so the user can then select that, say, I want to do this. And that's what you're supposed to do with machine learning and AI anyways, right? Is have an objective. What are you trying to accomplish? And then you track your ability to get closer to that mark, right?
Exactly, and people think of machine learning as this, all-knowing, very powerful models that are going to solve all your problems. I don't see it that way. I see it as an aid to the business expert. So you start with an answer for a question that you are trying to solve, and that answer is something that you can contribute to. So you should always keep in mind the answer might change in time because my data changes, my customers' behavior changes, my objectives also might change as a business person. So based on those changes, I want to make the model better. Another problem I see right now in companies is they are trying to make their data perfect before they can create models. Nobody's data is perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's data is perfect. So what I suggest is create some models first and see where you need effort in your data cleaning, creation, ETL. So create some models and then go back to your data efforts and make things better there where you need them, and then go back to your models again. So it has to be a back and forth of models created, experimented with, and then recreated, adding different data sources where you need most based on your return investment. So it is a process that involves business in the center, really. So you need business deciding, is this model good enough? Is my data good enough for this model? Am I getting my return investment? If not, why? So is there predictability? I want to talk about that also. I'm a huge believer in looking at your data and detection models before your prediction models, because there might not be predictability. So if there is no predictability, but these are all just interesting topics that we can talk more about.
That is very, very interesting. In just a second here, I'll bring Surya back in, but I love this quote: "Nobody is perfect, and nobody's data is perfect." There's an old expression in English: "Perfect is the enemy of good," which basically means if you focus too much on perfection, you're going to kind of blow past the boundaries and you wind up in bad. Basically, it either costs too much or takes too long, or something happens that sort of undermines your original objective. And that's not good for business. In business, we want to optimize for business for whatever it is, whether it's new customers, more profit from our existing customers, better processes for manufacturing. You always have to stay focused on the sort of range in which you're trying to accomplish something, right, Zera?
Totally agreed. And I'm originally a machine learning data scientist. Before I became an entrepreneur, I was that. And as a data scientist, I love making models better. 97% accuracy. Oh, I want to make it 99%. I'll just not, sleep and eat and make that model better. While business is crying their heart out, 80% accuracy model is just good enough for me. Just bring it to me now so I can take actions now, because I'm losing customers as we are speaking. One of my customers said, I just loved his quote. He said, you should ask your customers not what they can get out of your machine learning. You should ask, what are they losing right now by not doing machine learning, by not looking at their data? And often what we see is there are very obvious things happening on your data, and you cannot see them unless you have a model with which you look at it. It's like Matrix deja vu. Keanu Reeves says, I think he says like deja vu. He sees the black cat twice and he's like, oh, something is not right here. So the business experts can look at those machine learning models and they can say something is not right about my data. So they can take actions while things are happening, and they can correct a lot of mistakes, either while or before they are happening. So I have seen a lot of that happening. So I think business has to be involved, and real time involved if possible, to make machine learning right and operational.
That is very, very cool. Let's bring in Surya before the break comes here. Surya of Readiness. You made a very interesting point in the pre-call as well. You talked about what did you say? No prediction before experimentation, right? You want to experiment with your data and with your models before you think you can go and predict something. Tell us a bit about that and about yourself and Readiness.
Sure, yeah. I think the best way to start this answer is to tell what our motto is. Our motto is to make sure that we drive last mile adoption of AI and ML, right? As Zara pointed out, you can do a lot of things with advanced analytics and predictive analytics, but at the end of the day, it has to support a business user. And that's been our growth journey from day one. At Readiness, we are an AI and ML consulting services firm, primarily catering to a lot of global Fortune 100 companies, across retail, consumer goods, telecom, media technology, travel and hospitality, and some other industries too. My focus specifically is on customer experience and customer analytics. So we predict a lot of what a customer is going to do next for example, retailers, right? And that's where I think just relying on prediction alone is not the solution for personalization that most retailers want to solve, right? Every customer would want a personalized experiences to them. They want to see the right products, and if they search for the right category, They want to see relevant products coming up in their search results, right? And those personalized experiences are the ones that set the brands apart from each other. And the more personalized the experience is, the better it is for the conversion of the customer, right? But in this journey, the overemphasis on prediction is not always good, because you don't have always enough information about each and every customer, right? Sometimes it's a new customer who's signing up for the first time on the website, right? How would you personalize the products for him, right? And that's where having a healthy balance of where to use prediction versus where to use a rapid experimentation is important. And rapid experiments allow us to, randomize multiple segments of customers and then provide different experiences to each sets of customers and see what is winning and what is not winning.
Talking all things predictive analytics with three great companies, Tazi.ai, Readiness, and Talend. And I'll bring back Surya from Readiness real quick. I want to talk a bit more about these composable customer data platforms. That's very interesting to me, because again, a customer data platform is basically a database. If you get right down to it, you're storing data about customers, but you want to be relational in certain senses, or like a graph. So graph technology is really great for this kind of thing because it's nodes and edges, right? And so you can build out all sorts of new edges, like colors for clothes that you might want to buy, or styles of car, or even regions can be edges, and all kinds of different things. So tell us a bit about a composable customer data platform. Is that using graph technology? Is it a relational database? What is it?
Yeah, I think at the bottom, if you look at CDPs and what is there in the market, there are a lot of off-the-shelf platforms, customer data platforms in the market. But the problem with those platforms is that they do one thing really good, right? They're either very good in resolving identities and creating a persistent customer ID management, or they're pretty good with integrations to all the MarTech platforms of the world. And they don't really scale up as one single solution for the enterprise to do everything related to customer data and analytics and activation, right? And that's where the enterprises now prefer having something built in-house, using their own infrastructure, using their own warehouse of choice, right? And bring all of these signals and maintain them in their infrastructure, right? That takes care of privacy and security too, which is becoming a very hot topic in customer data. So,
That's funny. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and to your question, I think graph versus relation database is always a consideration that you need to make based on the use case that you're working on. If personalization, next best experience, if those are the primary reasons why you would want to set up a CDP, then graph databases work very well. The algorithms like the lookup algorithms work very fast on graph database. But if you want to create an infrastructure that scales to everything from reporting to analytics and to predictive analytics, I think relation database is the way to go. And it's a choice that we need to make in each and every implementation.
Yeah, and I'm smiling here, folks, because we're going back to the roll your own version of the storyline, right? Build or buy. Like, do you want to go out and buy off the shelf technology and then customize it? Do you build your own or roll your own, as they say? Apparently, they're big into smoking cigarettes or something else if you roll your own. That's what the big guys did, though. That's what LinkedIn did with Kafka. It's what Facebook did with Cassandra. So rolling your own is what the big guys do for sure. It's interesting to hear that other companies are now looking at that viable option. Well, let's bring in our final guest here, Faisal Khan, to talk about the data side of this equation, because Surya just made a really good point there of which set of capabilities do you want to focus on? Is it the ability to integrate with other technologies? Is it the ability to execute very quickly? Is it the ability to quickly build predictive models, for example? And you really do want to understand the nature of your business. How fast do you want to be able to build these models? How much value will you get from them once they're built? All those sort of business-oriented questions. And then what about the quality of the data? And that's, I think, where Faisal Khan may have a few things to say. So Faisal, tell us a bit about yourself and what you folks are working on over at Talend to leverage predictive models.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me over. So I am the VP of Enterprise Application Data Analytics at Talend. I've sat on both sides of the fence in the sales organization and behind under the operations for Talend. So like you said, Talend is the data management platform right? Or the way I call it, it's the backbone of how businesses get value out of the data. And I think Zara made that point. There's no such thing as perfect data or perfect human, but I would say that there's definitely a healthy human or a healthy data. And that's where talent comes in, right? So we look at it from a perspective of the focus of the health of the data, which brings in the governance, brings in the trust in the data, brings in the quality of the data. So all these perspectives are key because anything, if we focus on predictive or any other kind of analytics, it's what data we have and how we drive that, right? Everybody wants perfection, but to get to that point, we need to have healthy data that feeds into these models so we can actually predict and we can start learning patterns and stuff. The one other thing I would really like to mention here is working with our customers, and it's a huge customer base at Fortune 500. We have really, in the last few months or quarters, I would say, as their economic uncertainties out there, this has been a lot of focus on predictive analytics, right? The focus has been how can we get more insights from all the amounts of huge volumes of data that we have. They want to get to the next mile, right? They want to squeeze the maximum out of it. They want to be able to predict what the future will look like. And what the challenge that drives, I think we earlier touched upon that point, is what are the real business outcomes or objectives that we are going after, right? If we can understand that, there's always a way to achieve that. But in these uncertain times, people are just diving in without having a real focus on what are the business objectives that we are trying to achieve. And one thing I always say is innovation does not happen if you're not ready for failure, right? So failure is key for innovation. And if you can get to that point, that's how you get it, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, is you do have to be open to the idea of failing fast is what you want to do. And maybe it's the wrong word we're using, right? As opposed to failing, I don't know what the other word would be, but it's not a complete failure. It's just a lesson that you got learned
Exactly.
or that you learned, right? So you have to be able to learn lessons quickly and then change your behavior accordingly, right?
Yes, absolutely agree.
Fast.
Improve fast,
We
right?
say improve fast. Yeah.
And I think the point about we were discussing earlier was also businesses have these so many deadlines and I mean the pressure's on them. Hey, we need to make decisions, so give us the right answer, and that right answer comes with experimentation. We talked about experimentation also, right? So the healthier the data is, healthier foundation. I call it a foundation, right? The healthier your foundation is, the more experimentation, the faster experimentation you can do, the faster turnarounds on your failures and your learnings, so you get to the right outcomes that you're looking for.
Yeah, and let's talk about cycle times, because that's a real interesting point to make. And cycle times, what I mean by that is, what kind of sprints do your developers do? 2 weeks tends to be a pretty good time frame for developers. Give 2 weeks, all right, we want to do feature. Let's see if we can look at the data, figure something out. And then, when you make the decisions and how open do you have to be? And I know for sure it depends on the industry and the company and the culture and so forth. But Faisal, what can you say about advice of how to figure out your own cycle times, how to figure out how often you should be building new models, rolling out new models, et cetera? What are some of the metrics that you look for to know that?
Absolutely. Internally, even within talent, I mean, like you said it, right? It really depends on the use cases and the type of industry you're sitting in, right? I was actually interviewing one of the fintech SVPs, and their cycle times are less than a week. And that's because their entire business is web driven, and they are looking at how they deal with the customers. And it's a difference of millions of dollars, right? So really shortened times. But when I come to a B2B business, for example, how we do in Talent, at Talent myself, my entire team, our cycle times are different, right? Like you said, 2 to 3 weeks is a very solid time frame for running those sprints and be able to make those changes and bring out the new insights in there. So it really depends on how fast your business needs to get that data and be able to change the behavior of how they're interacting with the customers. That would really dictate the cycle times. And I always keep going back to the point is your foundation has to be really strong, which means your data has to be in good, healthy, quality state that you can improve your cycle times and be able to pivot as needed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then in terms of the data itself and the data management, to your point earlier, you can have a healthy human, maybe not a perfect human, but at least the human is healthy, at least the business is healthy. And that can be shown in the data. Right. And I'm kind of wondering, we're hearing all about data ops these days. How big a deal is data ops in your opinion, in terms of enabling good use of predictive models?
Oh, I think it's becoming more and more critical, right? And it is the next best thing that we have been talking about to our customers, and we use it ourselves because, as I said, all these different models that we have been building, we want to understand our data, we want to understand the health of the data, and all that. How are you going to drive that? The metrics that you're going to look at, you've got to have data ops running on these foundational layer, so you can really understand where the health of your data sits, right? So like at Talent, we use a data health console. Talent provides a data health console to look at the underlying data sets and see, hey, these are healthy data sets, these are unhealthy data sets. What are the gaps here? How can you improve the quality of these data or improve the health of these data? So all businesses that we talk to, they want to get to that level. They want to be able to say, hey, at a top level, at the discussions at the senior leadership, they want to say, hey, we are looking at our critical elements or critical data sets, and they are at a certain level of health which we are comfortable with.
Yeah, that's a really, really cool point there. And maybe I know Zeta has got to leave early today. I think you wanted to add a comment on that. Go ahead, Zeta.
So Faisal, I get excited about like having good enough data, right? So in two different industries, FMCG and insurance, I have seen our clients be impressed with getting 2 days. In 2 days, getting a machine learning model ready for them. So the cycle time from I have a business question to I have a model that works. If it is days, people are happy. If it is weeks, they are not happy because you have a business idea, you have an action that you want to take on your customers. If you wait for weeks, then you really don't have time to implement that idea. So I always look at this as there are business processes, there are questions that keep being asked by the business. So they want to basically answer every question that they have with a model. Those models are possible only if, as you said, if the data is in good enough condition. So I just think that there's a weight in terms of having good data and also having business who expects good answers from data in terms of models and also is able to take actions based on the answers of the models. And I want to also add, about Surya, the A/B testing. I find that to be extremely important for machine learning and data because world keeps changing. So your model that you have just deployed will not work in a short time. So you want to make sure that you are ready for that. So you have to be always A/B testing a machine learning model. There is actually no other way because people want to take actions and then they want to see the results of their actions compared to not doing anything or doing something else. That's how people improve their business. So I just want to point those two out about both Faisal and Surya's comments. Thanks, Eric, for letting me do this.
Yeah. Faisal, you want to comment on that?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't disagree at all, right? So there are times when business will say, hey, we need this in 2 days. Absolutely, we need it in 2 days, right? Whatever data we have, we run it against. But that also does not undermine the fact that you got to look longer term, right? These questions will never stop from business. Those, as you said, the market changes, the dynamics change, right? As the dynamics change, these different questions will pop up in answers in 2 days or 3 days. So the goal should be at the back end, we should always be monitoring and improving the health of the data, right? If that is there in conjunction with the time arounds and the pivots we need to do, that's how the organization stays up to the front or leading edge, as I call it. That way we can answer what the business is asking from that perspective.